Okay, so last week, and if you didn't see it, it would be worth watching. We talked about overcoming limiting beliefs, and we talked about a step-by-step way of going to it um, using the ideas I've talked about in the past, and I'll go through that in more detail. But if you haven't seen that session, I recommend going uh, and watching it on the Success Engineering YouTube site, which you can get to by going to the Success Engineering website and then taking YouTube, and you'll see a Amplio Value Coach playlist that has that. Um, so today we're taking it a step further. At one of the Amplio University sessions after that session, I had gotten really clear that what I've been doing is basically something akin to Toyota Kata. It's not the same, and I didn't build what I've done based on Toyota Kata. This comes from studying I'd done in the 80s. In the 80s, I was fortunate to work with a man called Fernando Flores. He was exile actually from Chile at the time. He's back now in Chile. He was Secretary of State, I believe, or Finance. I can never remember. Um, and he was in the United States, very brilliant guy. And what's interesting is he claimed that, and I think he's right. I mean, he explained, not claimed, that one of his abilities to see how people were in one country is when you observe it from another, because you're not just sucked into it, you can observe it separately. And he was really amazing about language. And from working with him, I kind of built a way of communicating, understanding human nature and understanding how we create language, how we create our reality in language. So that was one thing I was already working on. And we spent a year-long seminar. In fact, this was one of the first remote trainings probably ever. We used email that he had actually created an email system called the Coordinator back in the 80s. That was brilliant. Still better than anything we have now. It just got subsumed by Lotus 123 and then by IBM and therefore lost completely. Some every year, some new feature of it comes out and people figure it out. But anyway, I was also studying Toyota and Deming at the same time with somebody else. And this idea of how you learn, Fernando was teaching us how to read and how to learn. And part of that was also how to teach others. And between those two blends, I was basically created something like you could now say like Toyota Kata is. Now, I'm not claiming what I did was better or anything than Mike Rother's book. I love his book. And when I read Toyota Kata, I thought, wow, this is really great. And I appreciated it so much because it followed the theory of incremental learning and followed the theory of understanding. And lean, Toyota's based on, well, you lean came from Toyota, but the Toyota production system is consistent with lean thinking and flow. So there was this whole idea that there is an underlying understanding of what's going on. And those two pieces put together, you'll create Toyota Kata as a basic learning process. And what Mike Rother did in Toyota Kata, the book, was he spelled it out with all the theory and the detail. And I highly recommend the book. I'm completely consistent with him, even though I developed it independently. And I'm sure I've got a lot of his wrinkles in mine. I doubt Michael even knows me. So, but Mike Rother's brilliant. And his Toyota Kata book is brilliant. He's written other books too, I think Learning to See, which was also really good. But we had in this session, the A session, that actually what I'm doing is a bit more applicable. Actually, his would be too. He just doesn't talk about it. Why? Because it's not what Toyota does. Not that he doesn't know how to do this. I won't make that inference at all. I bet if you talk to him and asked him, he would say, oh, sure, you can do that. We'll see what that is. So this is an introduction to the what I call Amplio Kata, Amplio Kata coaching. This is the way you coach. Okay. And what the difference is, I'll show some of what Mike does in Toyota Kata and some of the expansions of it. I don't think there are any differences. When I read everything he does, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. He really lays this out extremely well. So we're not going to see me say anything that he could have improved because I don't know of anything he could have improved. I just wanted to explain because this is something really important. And I've seen this several times in my career that when two different people don't collaborate because they got their own thing, but they look at the same foundations and the same fundamentals, and they're just looking to get They're just looking to get what's the best way. You'd be surprised how often they come up with virtually the same thing. I've seen this several times in my career in the agile space in particular. The reason this is important is it breaks the idea that you have one thought leader who figures out something and on their opinion they do this. No, we should go down to the fundamentals and see how it applies, and you get amazing consistency when you do that. You're starting to see this now as some people are getting a little disenchanted with frameworks, and you see some people are doing theory of constraints. There's a lot of commonality between their approaches, yet other people there are some differences because some people bring in some other things in addition. Anyway, let's go forward and we'll see what I mean. So, this is the background. I'm not going to do this today because we alluded to this and I've got these materials recorded, but there are three things to know. Okay, theory is important. This has been the big discounted thing in the agile space. People say, "Oh, that's just a theory." Oh, well, bridges are built with theories. My car works because of theories. My food works because I have a coffee this morning because of theory. Theory is not bad. The problem is theory is often misidentified. If you have a plan on what you're going to do, that's not a theory, that's a plan. Now, if you want, you could say there's an hypothesis that if I follow this plan, that I'll get the result I want. Now, that's the theory that's unproven, untested. Approaches are theories in my mind, or are really hypotheses. This hypothesis, if you do this, then you'll get these results. And the theory is that, that'll work, but it's untested. In fact, a lot of the agile frameworks that are out there, the theories are the hypothesis that if you follow this, you'll get good results. I would suggest the theory is invalidated because most of the time you don't. But people don't look at it that way, but I think you should. So theory is important. And without it, people then have to trust the coach. You hear things like follow to understand or trust me for a little bit, or let's run some experiments and see how it goes. This evokes resistance. It creates fear. People don't like uncertainty. It makes more fear. What do you mean? You can't explain to us why this is going to work? They may not say that, but they're thinking that. Having the coach as an authority figure is not a good thing. Now, people say, well, it's not a good thing because people need to learn all that. Yeah, it's not a good thing for reasons. Beside that, and all those reasons are good, it's not a good thing because people will not learn how to think for themselves. You cannot learn how to lead by following. I am sorry, that doesn't happen. We're supposed to be leaders. If we're supposed to know what's going on, follow to understand, it's just teaching you how to follow. Why can't you understand up front? Because there is an opportunity, besides all those negative things, there is an opportunity when you present theory to evoke understanding based on your past experience. How do you pull that past experience up to the front? This is the basis for those eureka moments. Okay, what's the difference between experts and others? It's not people are smarter. This is what I actually learned from Fernando. People are only good in different domains. Like my wife and I were called the high tech, high touch company. She was an she's an ex massage therapist. She was a school counselor, has a couple of psychology degrees, has done all sorts of stuff. Me, high tech. So I was a high tech, she was the high touch. I'm not smarter than her. And I don't say that just out of self preservation. I say that because I'm not smarter than her. You want a math problem, a science problem, how to get your computer done, even do a recording on a TV, maybe come to me. You want to have empathy, you want to get an understanding, you want to get advice on how to raise your kids, go to her. She's smarter there than I am. This is important to know. This emotional intelligence idea just splits it up into two things, logical and emotional. Well, no, they're zillions. My house cleaner who comes in, cleans my house, she's way smarter about cleaning than I am. She knows all sorts of stuff. Every now and then I'll read something. Oh, there's this tip on, and I'll ask just to make sure she's doing it. I said, oh yeah, we have this whole system down. So yeah, I'm sorry. Just wanted to make sure. But now if I thought she was smarter, I was smarter. That's stupid. That's actually stupid to think people are smart. People aren't smart. They only are knowledgeable in particular domains, particular areas. That's important because what that means is there's stuff you know that they don't, and there's stuff they know that you don't. And it's that blend that can be useful. These are all available at the Amplio University Foundation's curriculum page. I'll put stuff like this up on the where you can get at it, or I'll send it out in the email. And these are available both in text and video, so I'm not going to go over them. There's even more about how to be a coach and all that, but I'm not going to go through that. Now, there are three axioms. By an axiom, I mean a foundation. And I shouldn't say three. These aren't the three axioms. These are three of many axioms that I want to bring to the forefront. One is this idea of hard and soft skills. Oh, that should say stop. Sorry, I'll just fix things as I go. I meant to apologize at the start. We had kind of a, everybody's okay. Uh, but we had kind of a little family crisis I had to pay attention to. So although I have all the content here, it's a little rough. I decided I didn't want to postpone today. I thought about that, but since I have the scope, I figured I'd go ahead and do it. Are there hard and soft skills? I suggest there aren't hard and soft skills as separate things, and we'll go into that. Is logic and emotion all there is? I'll suggest no. That yeah, there might be logic and there might be emotion, but there's also being a human being, which is a weird blend. In other words, you all, because you're alive and you're human, have had experience in the past that kind of traumatized you a little bit, and you react sometimes. I mean, like think about driving and a car comes across and cuts you off in front, or does it in a rude way, but not a dangerous way. You don't stop and think about, that wasn't particularly pleasant of that person. I wasn't in any danger, but I didn't like that at all. I think I'm going to give him the finger. No, you don't do that. You just do this. It's an automatic response. And maybe you don't have that response, but you know what I'm talking about. Some people, in some ways, trigger you. That is not emotion. That actually triggers an emotion. That's something else. That's called being a human being. Now, as a coach, you better be aware of this because you can trigger people. And if they're passive aggressive, I'm going to show you what a passive aggressive person looks like when they get triggered. Let me give a little bit more video here. This is what a passive aggressive person looks like when they get triggered. See, you don't know they're triggered because that's what passive aggressive people do. Believe me, I've got years of experience of this one. So there's not just logic and emotion. There's just being a human being of automatically being triggered. You have to be aware of this as a coach. And then there's complexity is not simple. I've got a different way to talk about complexity, and this is important to understand in coaching as well. So I'm going to go through these first because these are somewhat the basis. They're not all the basis, but they're three pieces of the basis that are often not quite talked about, and I wanted to talk about them. Now, please interrupt me with questions and comments or disagreements. There is going to get to be a little bit more interactive, but I'm just trying to lay the background now. Okay. So we've seen hard skills. I just got this, I don't know, I think I got this out of Chat GPT. These are what's often called hard skills. Oops. Yeah, that's right. 7. So you got technical, analytical design, language marketing, things, how do you do things? And then soft skills are a little longer, how to communicate, teamwork, adaptability, problem solving, time management, emotional intelligence, leadership, conflict resolution, critical thinking, and work ethic. Now, I want you to look at these two lists. Are they really separate? I don't think they're separate at all. If you're talking to somebody about some technical problem and you don't understand how you can relate to them, these two relate back and forth. Let's look at a couple of these. I want to really see this, like language skills. They mean by what language you speak and all that, and communication skills. But what if you say something that triggers them because it reminds them of some teacher they had in high school that they didn't like? Now, I want you to get that happens. I want people to stop for a second and just see that, in fact, stuff like that happens. Think of a time somebody did something that really didn't mean much, but you reacted to it. Where did that reaction come from? Think of other times you've had that. See, these all relate, and we talk about safety in the workplace. Have you ever had to learn something new and you got a little afraid of it? Oh my God, now I got to learn this? Yeah, T. I mean, yeah.
was going to say yes. That's happened to me.
Yeah, it
I don't know
happens.
if that was a rhetorical question or if you
No, it
expected a
wasn't a
response.
rhetorical question. Yeah, thank you. No, I wanted you to actually say something. Yeah, it happens to everybody. Thank you for acknowledging it. See, the problem is it doesn't happen just to you, it happens to everybody alive. When you're a coach and you know this, you react differently, right? You might look to see, are you offending somebody unintentionally? You've been offended unintentionally. You offend people unintentionally. And you can make people terrified when you talk about, oh, we now need to learn this. We talk about safety in the workplace, but where does safety exist? It exists in the safety in the head of the person who's doing this. Yes, Thomas.
Yeah, and I would say that a lot of the hard skills that you list there are rooted in soft skills. So, for example, a customer service rep needs to have emotional intelligence, needs to be adaptable, needs to be good at communicating, at
Yeah,
resolving conflicts, etc.
exactly. That's exactly my point. Thank you for pointing that out. That with that example is a good one. Um, if you're going to teach technical skills, you definitely need this. Yes, again.
Yeah, maybe not with all of them, but a lot of the soft skills also tend to be maybe separated from hard skills because they're harder to measure.
Yes. Except together they wouldn't be that hard to measure because you could measure how is a coach able to teach technical skills and it blends the two. The problem is people don't really like being introspective about themselves. A lot of people don't like. And a lot of people, when they look at self-awareness programs, they poo-poo it because, I mean, there are some shams in personal development and all that. And I understand that. You can't get too excited in business, and that's emotional. So we're supposed to be scientific and understanding and all that. At least I grew up in that, family of a doctor, a brother who's a doctor, and then my other brother just had a PhD from MIT. I'm the failure of the family education wise. I only need two masters. Uh, and I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding because I grew up in a very serious family. No, I love them. Those are still alive. I love them, all of them. And I was very well raised, but I was trained to be serious. Okay. I'm a lot less serious than I used to be. If you think I'm serious now, you should have seen me 30 years ago. Uh, uh, That's the point. You can't separate them. You can't separate these. And it's a problem. Now, I believe uh, that the reason they've been separated is because people like to solve problems. People want to buy solutions, and a solution is, oh, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Don't tell me I'm doing something wrong. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me I need to improve. Of course, and then when that fails, the people who sold the hard skills or the process blame those people for not doing it right, ignoring this whole emotional aspect of things. This is the biggest gap in the whole agile space. There are two huge ones, absolutely so massive. I just have to shake my head. No, maybe three. The first one is this separation. And that leads to coaching and training missing. And training happens in short spurts instead of over time, attending to how people are. And the other one is the lack of a agreed upon theoretical approach, like what's underneath all this. So how they behave is not a hard or soft skill. It's an integration of the two. And I would suggest you have to attend to this. People get terrified of this. Oh, what if I don't learn that? How long is it going to take me? Am I going to get fired? What if I don't? You get an emotional response. So by the way, that emotional response is also like this to the driver. It's automatic. They don't think, gee, I wonder if I should be afraid. See, no, what happens is the automatic emotional response happens, and then if you're wise enough, you will notice it. Instead of being in a panic, you'll step back and look to see if the voice in your head that's going crazy is speaking intelligence or not. It usually isn't. If you're in fear and you're a capable person, there's probably something weird going on. Fear, I was once described, is false events appearing real. Now, if you're in a zoo and somebody leaves the lion cage open and he licks his lips when he looks at you and there's now nothing between you and him, be terrified and do something about that. But if you have to learn a skill, don't be so terrified. It's an opportunity, actually. I was talking, I have a company I use that's in India, and I've been talking to one of the people there about kind of going out of his comfort zone a little bit. And I know the guy's a little bit afraid because not so much because he doesn't think he'll learn what I want him to learn, because I know he will. He's smart enough, he's got enough confidence, but it's not in his comfort zone. It's not what he likes to do. I don't want to do something I don't like to do. You ever run across people with that conversation? So comfort is a problem. And I like Ellie Goldrat's comment. A comfort zone has less to do with control and more to do with understanding. So this is the point. Understanding emotions and just this automatic response of people is something we have to attend to. And the best way to learn, here's the rub with this. uh, confession time, except everybody has this one, so I'm not embarrassed by it. It's a lot easier to see this in other people than in you. Oh yeah, they do all this all the time. Yeah, but that guy's so reactive. I just don't understand it. Oh, that guy misinterprets everything I say all the time. Okay. No, we do it. In fact, what I find is that if you see anything out there, that's because it's inside you. And it's a great opportunity to see, how am I doing that? When do I do that? When do I get overly serious? When do I say things that don't make sense? That's a coaching on coaching set tip in a sense. So this is going to be a little bit more interactive, and then I'll get into the coaching kata, because complexity is interesting, and I want to do this interactively. I intentionally didn't build this slide. I usually use lucid boards or something for it, but I was just going to keep it in PowerPoint and build it. So let me tell you the situation. Let me break out of the presentation mode so I can type things, and I'll tell you what I want to do. Okay, so let's say we have a complex system here. Okay. Now, personally, oh, let's just leave it this way. Let's say this is you, you're the coach, or we have a coach, we have a coachee, that's the person being coached, and we have a complex system. Now, do we really have a complex system? I mean, what is a complex? What does it mean to be a complex system? Somebody want to tell me what they suggest, think it is? What does that mean?
The input skills.
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Mike. Yeah, no, Mike, you
No,
go.
no, you go. I think, yeah, I think you're about to say what I was thinking.
Yeah. You can't directly correlate inputs with outputs.
Okay.
There's
Okay, that's kind of nice. You're talking about it. Was that what you were going to say as well?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, good. So now this is interesting. This is an interesting way to look at it. See, you have a different, you're already proving what I was trying to do in this thing, which is that we have different perspectives, because I don't think about it this way, but you're absolutely right. And that's a good way to think about it. You're saying, I don't even know what's in the box. I don't care. And I can't tell inside and outside. Okay. So what's another way? What's another way to think about a complex system?
some would say they just don't understand it. Anything that they don't understand, they would consider complex.
Okay. So sometimes it's what's complex. Now, when you have a system, well, why can't you understand it? Let's look at that. Can you see into it? Sometimes complexes are systems you can't see into, but what if you can kind of pretty much look and see what's going on? Then why is it you don't understand it? You don't understand anything about it, or are there some things you don't understand?
I would posit it's some things.
Okay. So in some sense, so part of this is because some things are not understood. Now, what should we be looking at in a complex system? Like, so there's some things, but what are you talking about? You're talking about the pieces. I don't understand, like in my car, I don't understand how the engine works. You look at the pieces, or do you look at something else, or both?
Well, sometimes results are unexpected, and you might delve into what happened.
So you're looking for cause and effect. Well, maybe not. You're just looking for what happened.
Yeah.
What do you look
be-
at? What do you look at when you're looking at cause and effect, when you're looking at what happened?
Maybe a corollary to that would be that you cannot predict how the system is going to behave over longer periods of time. And often the understanding that's in the last line item is sought so as to be able to predict what's going to happen. But in
Yeah.
complex systems, that may not be always possible.
Yeah. So let's look at things. There are two ways to look at this. You've mostly been talking about I can't predict what's going to happen in the system. So therefore I'm calling it complex. Okay. So if you look at it from a behavior point of view, I could say this from a behavior, I can't direct inputs, unexpected results, can't predict. That's a behavior of the system, right? So you can say a system is complex if we can't do any of these things, if any of these things are true, correct? So what are the characteristics of inside a complex system? I mean, why is it complex? What is it?
You mean structurally?
That could be a piece of it. What is it about systems that create complex behavior? By the way, it's interesting because I'm not sure I've ever made this distinction myself. So I've just learned a distinction that's important. There's the behavior. And if you talk about complex systems from a behavioral point of view, there are definitely complex systems. But if you talk about complex systems from how they're built, that's a different thing, although they're correlated. Yes, did you have something else to say?
Me, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe lots of dependencies.
Yeah, so there can be, what is it about that create complex behavior? Lots of dependencies. What else? Here, I'm going to take what you said here, Susan. There are just some things you don't understand, but then I was asking, is it the pieces or the relationships or both? I'll just say, and we've got one.
You also need nonlinear interactions between the elements of the system.
Nonlinearity, that means a little change makes a big difference. Like the camel, the straw that broke the camel's back, or I normally appear nice, but there are a few things if you say it just reminds me of when I was a little kid and beaten up by my brother, so I'm going to react aggressively to you. You said a little thing, you used a word I don't like, and I'm now pissed off at you. That's a nonlinear event. That's a people event. I mean, a human thing. So when you look at it this way, and there are others, but here's the point. The main point is this. There's how it behaves. And yes, there is complex behavior. And then there's things where we don't understand that complex behavior. But this is a result of the behavior, but a lot of this stuff, is it inherent in the system or due to our understanding of the system? It's more about due to our understanding, isn't it? Even if we don't have perfection, we predict the weather a lot better now than we used to because we have weather satellites that can show us stuff, but it's still complex. We understand more things about systems now than we used to. Flow, lean, theory of constraints. So when a coach looks at the complex system, I suggest they see that the complex system, let's look at this a different way. Okay. This is what I was trying to get to as a summary. I'm going to make this a little smaller. I just intentionally didn't do this yet because I wanted to have this interaction because then you think about it. By the way, does everybody agree to what's up here? I want to point out something here. If I had wrote this down for you, would you still have agreed with it? I think so, but would you have understood it as well as you understand it now? See, this is an important coaching tip. People don't resist when you give them the answer if they think it's going to make their lives better. And they say, yeah, that seems reasonable, but they don't understand it as well when you give it to them. That's why you don't give it to them, not because they'll resist. Forcing you to think you were looking in your past experience. You were looking back when I said that about the automatic reaction, and you looked to see what was it that I did in the past. You now knew what I meant because you had an experience of it, and you pulled that into the present based on the theory I was expressing. The theory being that sometimes we just react to things. The experience that I evoked with my theory is really powerful because now you know this yourself. I'm using your past experience to affirm what I'm saying in the present. And now we have a common language of theory. Does this all make sense? Isn't that what we just did the last 10 or 15 minutes?
Mhm.
See, this is what a coach needs to do. It's using, and what I actually have done is I did two things happen here. One is I guided you to some of this, but actually some of this I hadn't anticipated at all. Did it bother me? No, it's like, yay. See, as a coach, when my coachee, you in this case, discover something I hadn't thought about, I don't say, oh my God, Al, you're supposed to be smarter. Remember, I'm the smart guy and you're the dummies and I know everything and you don't know anything. I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying at the beginning? We all are smart in a domain. By recognizing I have some skills and you have other skills, then when you bring up what you know as a coach, I feel enlivened and excited and wow, this is so cool. Instead of like, oh man, I'm supposed to know all this crap. Okay. This, by the way, Jerry Weinberg talks about this in Secrets of Consulting, a good book to read as a coach. So here's my point. Let me make these a little, let me insert something that I didn't do, but I want a different color. Colors don't mean anything, just want a different color. In the complex system, there are some things the coach knows, the coachee does not. Now, this could be broken down into two parts. This could be, I know, and you've never had an experience of, and I'm going to teach it to you, or I know you don't consciously know, but you have instincts for, like the automatic reaction. But as you all demonstrated, which was really cool, there are some things the coachee knows that the coach does not. And this is a good thing. They're both good things. Oh, and maybe to do this, there's also obviously, I'm not trying to say there's less of this because there probably isn't, but I'm running out of space. Okay. So I'll make it smaller. But then there's stuff we don't see. Now, this is what gets interesting. And I don't mean to imply, in fact, maybe this is implying and I don't like it. By the way, that's the other thing. Notice how putting up more space implies it's bigger. It's not what I mean, but so I'm realizing that I don't want to have that implication. So I'm going to make this a little smaller so it doesn't look so huge. But there's stuff that we don't know, we don't see, either one of us. Now, let me ask you, that stuff that's out there, is that something we can't understand or just something we don't understand? Probably a bit of both, right? See, here's the thing though. If you don't take advantage, this is my main tenet about dealing with complexity. If you don't take advantage of what you and the coachee knows, you're losing opportunity because you could take advantage of it. Like I know overloading people is not a good thing. Well, I'll take advantage of that. Are there other things I don't see? Absolutely. Are those things logical? Maybe. Are they emotional? Maybe. Are they this automatic evoked response? Yeah, all three of those. You get that? In other words, I'm going to get hit by stuff I don't see. So what we want to do as a coach is not only teach people things, let them learn things based on their past experience, We acknowledge they're in a complex system. We're in a complex system. Things will come up, and this is why we want feedback. We want feedback to see when we hit this stuff, and we want feedback when we can see they didn't understand that because they wouldn't have done what they did if they understood it. Oh, that went better than I thought. Oh, well, what did I not see? See, things you don't see can make improvement or degrade your performance. Usually it's the degraded, but sometimes you get a breakthrough. Oh man, you ever get those? Oh, I never saw that before. Oh wow, this is so awesome. That's when you saw something now that you hadn't seen that actually improves things. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm finally ready to get into it. I'm going to pause questions while I see where I am. This all clear. Anybody have any challenges with this? Okay, so why is that not firing up? Because I'm touching the wrong side of the keyboard, I think. I've been having troubles with PowerPoints. Oh, good. In fact, I say that. Let me make sure I save this because it's been weird a little bit today. Okay. So guidance is coaching. This is the essence of the Amplio Kata coaching. I'm doing Amplio Katas, or if you want to think Mike Rother's Kata, that's fine, but I'm going to extend what he talks about. That's why I'm calling it Amplio Kata. But it's very consistent. Use someone's intuitive sense of things by relating the current situation with something they're familiar with. That's what we just did 10, 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes. Get people to understand a better way that appeals to them both logically, that's easier to do, and emotionally, that's often difficult to do. So you got to be aware of this. They may agree with me, but they don't feel good about it. Keep in mind they have a history of things that can evoke resistance or upset or excitement. Take advantage of that. Oh, yeah. Want to lose that. Oops. Oh, crap. This is the problem I've been having. I do not know what it is about this slide. I should not try to change it. I even took out the content of the slide, put it into Word, made it non-formatted, and put it back here. There's something, I think it might just be a bug in PowerPoint. Last time I had to reboot my whole system. I don't know what it is. It's just bizarre. Yeah, I've got to force quit, but I can just come right back because, hey, I saved it before that. Good smart owl there. It's just bizarre. I thought there was something in the slide when it got converted, when I copied something in. But like I said, I've actually completely rebuilt that slide.
Is it a complex slide?
Yes, it's not that complex, but it's obviously on a complex system. The interaction between between Mac and it's taking a while to recover. Hang on. I'll pull it up another way. It's just weird. It's like that slide, even when I rebuilt it from scratch. I didn't retype it. I copied it in without formatting. Hang on. There we go. It's just really bizarre. Okay. Fortunately, I had the right instincts to save it. I'll also have it as a recovered file, I'm sure. But yeah, here we go. I'll save. Okay, coaching is guidance. Okay. Well, I'll remember to do that there's also that can evoke resistance, upset, or excitement. It's just so bizarre. So this is the approach I suggest. This is what, or I can label that different too. So learn where they are. Where are they? This is what I learned from Fernando. The way you teach things to people, you see where they are, you see where you want them to go, and then remember where they are and where they want to go, and experts there, maybe they're here. What are those distinctions? How do you guide them there? That's the question. That's what I talk about in those two articles I mentioned earlier. Learn where they are, listen, and ask questions to see what they think. I don't do mind reading very well. I think I understand what's going on with other people, but I know it's an illusion. So I have to ask questions. Remember earlier conversations and attitudes I've come across. That might be what they're thinking, but don't infer that's what they're thinking. Okay. And then understand the difference between their thinking and my thinking. Now, by the way, your thinking may be wrong. But if you're an experienced coach, it'll be right more often than not. But don't assume you're right. This is why we came up with that quote, keep calm and carry on. It's like you need to let people know that when they're not sure, that you want them to tell you, because maybe you're wrong, maybe they're wrong, maybe they misunderstood, maybe it can be refined. So we want to know the distinctions missing and talk about those littler things. Ask questions to illuminate these. So what we have now is we can ask questions that are open-ended. Don't say, do you think this? Do you think that? No, that's you probing and interrogating them. You ask, well, what do you think about that? Have you ever had an experience like this before? Because you don't know what they're thinking. You should know you don't know what they're thinking. And we try to kid ourselves into thinking we know what they're thinking. And what's interesting, actually, as you pay attention to what I'm talking about, you will know what they're thinking more than you do when you're not doing that, but you never really know what they're thinking. It's all an hallucination. Everything you teach, you want to explain as a way to get them. No, we talked about this last session, so I'm not going to go through this, but the idea was this had to do with the session we did before, which was how to get beyond limiting beliefs. And one of the limiting beliefs was that starting sooner gets you done sooner, when in fact it doesn't. And everybody knows that that doesn't work in a grocery store, which is actually fairly straightforward. Imagine if everybody in line started as soon as they got in line. That would be a havoc. Imagine if every teller had only certain skills. So you had to go, everybody's getting checked out at the same time. Tellers switch back and forth between things. That's insane. This is called agile product management, however. It's insane when you don't pay attention to the rules. So if you're really interested in this, you can go back to the earlier session and I talk about it in detail, because I want to get to the kata. And this is the difference. What occurred to us while we were talking, the ACEs and Amplio University, is, see, Amplio, in fact, I forgot I meant to change the order of this. And so I'll just pull up this slide. Let me tell you what Toyota Kata is, and then I'll come back to these slides. So Mike Rother, this is a book. Highly, highly, highly recommend this book. Okay. Much of the learning process in the agile space is fundamentally wrong. And I felt this for a long time, and I really started having confidence it was wrong back in 2007, I think it was. I was the co-keynote speaker at Tokyo at Agile Japan with Professor Nonaka, the author of the new product development game that inspired Scrum. He was invited because Scrum affected Agile a lot, inspired Agile. And he was invited for that. And I was invited because of my work with Kanban and some other things. And just outspoken stuff with Lean. And what's interesting is there were a lot of presentations about learning that I didn't think were right. And I had a feeling Professor Nonaka didn't think were right, but he didn't say anything. And I wondered about it. And I asked him, he said, this learning style they're talking about is just ineffective. This was basically the old inspect and adapt approach, because there's not a lot of theory in it at times. And I knew why he didn't say anything, because he's polite. And in public, you don't embarrass people because of honor and all that. But this here is very consistent with learning and Nonaka and all that. So what I want to explain this, and then I'll go back to what I do, okay, and how I extend it. So basically, he uses, by the way, the act, plan, do, the plan, do, check, act, or study. I prefer PDSA. The short cycle, the Deming cycle, they're both worked on it. Is basically you try you plan, you do it, you check, you see where you are, you update your model, you update your understanding. And this can be, if you have this be a long time, you get little learning. So you want to do this in short cycles. Deming cycle, short cycle, whatever you want to call it, is integral to this. And the point is, you don't do one big one, you do lots of little ones. That keeps you on track, keeps you learning consistently. The improvement kata, and this is what's interesting. The improvement kata is how you as a person improves. You grasp the current situation. What's my next target condition? Do all this. That's called the improvement kata. The question is, who establishes all of this stuff? Well, it may not be you. It might be your manager. It might be other teams. It might be all sorts of things. So what Rother put together is he calls the improvement kata and then the coaching kata. It's brilliant. Okay. In other words, you want to help the person you're mentoring, the mentee or the coachee, as I said. This person, the mentor, this is usually a manager, by the way, in Japan, at least in Toyota. And they're improving and you're coaching them on how to improve. You're both doing katas, coaching kata, improvement kata. Does that make sense? You're learning how to improve better. Now I'm going to go back. Any questions on this? This is kind of common sense when you think about it, but it's only common sense if you agree that there are these steps. By the way, what if this is a distinction and that's the next distinction and that's the next distinction and this is the difference between an expert and a non-expert, and these steps are the steps you've laid out in your mind because of this builds on that, builds on that, builds on that, builds on that, and also knowing, this might not be right. So you don't lay this out like you might in a waterfall. You really do this in an agile way. This is like a backlog of the next things you might do. And as you learn more about them, you change the order. Does that make sense too? That's calling being agile learning. Okay, so let's come to the slides that I should have had after that. So it occurred to me actually before the session last week with the ACEs that, well, Mike is using this, Toyota Kata is using this to improve a process, but can't we replace a subconscious belief? In other words, they haven't really thought about it, or a conscious belief. I think pushing a lot of things on people is a good idea, or to provide a new insight. I should say providing, not proving. See, aren't we doing the same thing? We're trying to get a benefit and we're going at it different ways, removing a limiting belief. We're teaching something new for a future result to be aware of, or improving. There is the fourth one, which is the improvement kata, coaching to improve a process. But if you think about all this, see, we're really saying this. The Toyota Kata can be extended to include not just as a coaching and improvement kata, but as a coaching and thinking better kata. Does that make sense? Same thing.
What I like about this, Al, is that the whole premise behind the kata is you don't know how you're going to get there. So to your point, there's a benefit you're trying to go after. And the work to be done is trying to figure out what the obstacles are that you have to overcome to get to that benefit. That's the beauty of the kata.
Yeah, that's right. And this is not a new thing. What Fernando added to it was this idea that you can see missing distinctions up front and discover the others. And let's come back to here. See, these are the missing distinctions you're aware of. These are things you'll discover along the way. And these are things that, who knows? You'll discover them along the way as well. That's why you want quick feedback cycles. Okay, so what can we teach via coaching? I'm suggesting everything. Admittedly, this was an insight. I got this last week at 12 to 1, talking to the ACEs in Amplio University, when I realized, I've always done it like Rother did it, but why don't we do it everywhere? Or I actually was doing it everywhere, but I didn't realize it was just paralleling him all the time. Okay, and we've done these slides. Okay, there's one or two more things left, just going through them to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so this is kind of one way to think about it, is there's what we want them to discover. What's the benefit of it? What are they thinking now? How's this holding them back? What fears underlie their belief system? This is an important thing too. This is part of described in the pickup six. What is it they already almost know? In other words, somebody said, actually, Jim Trott told this to me, so I'll give him credit for it, but I don't know that he was making it up on his own. He could be. He's smart enough to realize this, but somebody else probably said it too. People only learn what they already almost know. They got to be close. So you take this step by step. How they might react. See, this is the human being reaction. And you have to ask questions that projects no judgment that may deepen their understanding. Okay, again, typo, sorry. Like I said, I ran out of time because we're okay, but just something happened last night that took the time I'd planned to finish polishing this. And I didn't want to cancel it though. So this is what Toyota Kata says. It's pretty much the same thing. What Mike does, though, in his book, that's brilliant. So that's why I highly recommend reading it. Is the fact that I've covered it doesn't mean you know what he's saying there. He goes through the theory and the understanding of learning. And people are trying to take this theory and understanding of learning in a way that tacking it on. But I think this is the big problem. This is why Agile's kind of hit the iceberg, I call it AI, and the current situation is because people don't understand what's going on. It's not being taught. You don't teach it after 2 or 3 advanced courses. You teach it with the very beginning is the important thing. Okay, so this is just another list of what I had. So there's nothing new. Okay. Are we improving thinking, subconscious beliefs, anything like that? This is other stuff. Yeah, this is, I don't know why I have this in here. Oh, that's actually not bad coaching tips, but it's not part of this session here. So any questions? And then I want to do closing, but I want to ask questions first. I mean, answer questions first, or anything you're kind of a little not agreeing to, or you're not sure. If there's something, by the way, if there's something you think might be right, but you don't see that it's right yet, those are good questions.
I think it also relates to your single loop and double loop and maybe triple loop learning. Like what you
Yeah,
have here. Are we trying to improve a practice? That's sort of single loop learning. And then the last one, are we trying to improve the thinking to be able to improve in the future? That would be more double loop learning.
Yeah, we're working on getting nicer graphics of this, and I actually surprised I didn't think of putting those in, but let me just pull up what Thomas is just talking about. There we go. No, that's not it. Right here. Okay. So we're still deciding on how to make this prettier. Oh, that's the older version for reference. Here we go. Okay, here it is right here. This is graphics done in Figma. So single loop learning is you do something, you get results, you try to do it better. This is inspect and adapt is a kind of this. You're reinforcing habit, actually. You're kind of doing the same thing over and over, get better at that approach. Double loop learning says, in addition to this, see, we plan to study and then we can act in a single loop way, but we can also challenge our assumptions, see if we want to adjust our model, and then go back. So it goes both ways. Double loop learning, this is the double loop, and this is the single loop. This is the way most people learn because they don't want to challenge their assumptions because somehow that feels degrading to them. So this is an emotional shift. Emotions stop you from doing the double loop. You got to overcome it. Be willing to accept that you don't know things. Okay. Now, there's also something called triple loop learning, which has us learn how to learn faster. Okay, I don't have that shown, but you get the idea. It's very important to do double loop learning and single loop learning, and that's exactly what this is. Now, there's some others that are quite interesting. This is a very interesting book to read. I read it because I've got an interest in building architecture. That was one of the things when I was in high school. I was trying to decide between becoming an architect or getting into software, but software and computers fascinated me, so I got into that. This was in the kind of the early days, 1969, 70, when I was considering it. Uh, but this is a brilliant book, whether you're doing software or buildings. It's very much nice book to read. And he talks about double loop learning. He has the best description of single double loop learning that I've ever seen in this book, which I thought was kind of interesting. I just read it on a whim. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so let me tell you what's happening because it is a shift, and I'm happy some of you are regulars in ACOP and some of you are in the ACE program or Amplio University. So if you read my email, you understand that this is the last of the every Tuesday morning sessions. Okay. And I'm not going to apologize for, I mean, well, maybe I'll apologize for saying it and then shifting so quickly, but I'm not apologizing for the move because my main thrust, my main reason for working now is Amplio University. I think a big shift is necessary in what we do. I'm not the only person who knows how to do this. Some people say I said that. I never said that. In fact, I often say that just so because I get tired of people saying I said it. There are lots of good people out there. Steve Tendon, Wolfram Mueller, Peter Merrill. They have even approaches. Then there are zillions of consultants who are brilliant, besides my own aces, of course, a couple of them here. Uh, the the thing is there are lots of consultants. What's unique to me about our approach is we have the whole scope pretty much. There's some things we don't stress in, but mostly the whole scope, and we teach theory and coaching and all that with it. And that's pretty much pressing me as it is. But I want to keep the ACOP going on. So what I'm going to do is the second Wednesday, not Tuesday, second Wednesday of every month, I'll have an ACOP session. You'll get notified of it. And I'm also going to be putting the ACOP, the Amplio Community Practice, what y'all are in, content into a learning management system, which I've never had. So there's still like a couple of days at least of free videos and things like that that you can use. And in the monthly sessions, there'll be a community board. This will be a few weeks away, but it's not that long. There'll be a community board where you can ask questions. So I'm still happy to work with y'all. I'm just doing this so I can spend more time with the university because I think that's really important. And this session will go up on the YouTube. I'll get that up later today. I do want to emphasize again, I think you all know this, but I'm going to emphasize it for anybody who may be watching this. Amplio University is very extensive, but I've decided because a lot of people look at it as, oh my goodness, that's so big, I don't have time for it. And actually, I really appreciate those people that come to most every session because that's a lot of work, really commitment to learning. But what I've decided to do is pull out, not from the university, everybody gets everything in the university, but like the coaching track, the Amplio Kata Coaching, if you want to just take that track and be limited to that track, it's like in a university, I'm only going to go to these classes, I give a discount. Okay, and for you who've been in ACOP, because I made a change that normally $495 will now just be $395 for a 6-month program, meeting physically every other week and being available to me all the time. And I highly recommend that if you're interested in being a better coach, whether it's software or not software. I'm going to create one other track, which is a blend of my safe release train engineer and what I call Amplio mid-scale. I came up with something called BLAST, basically an agile solution team that predates and is better than Scrum at Scale. And I'll be doing that as another track for $495. So if you've got questions and you want to talk to me about the full university, that's normally $995. That price is going up to $1995 because once I get it in the LMS, the learning management system, it's still 1/5 the cost. So it's still way affordable at twice the price than anything else I've seen. But again, I'll give $100 off if you want to go full bore in. And final thing about this, what's cool about Amplio that we've been seeing more and more as people outside of the product and software product come on board is this has proven to be applicable to non-software and non-product things. So don't say, oh, I'm not doing software development. That's fine. Lean works everywhere. Theory of constraints works everywhere. Flow works everywhere. Read Don Reinertson's book on flow. He doesn't limit it to software. He limits it to any kind of knowledge work that's taking place. Okay, so thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me give my little sales pitch. And I'll be following this up and making sure you can see where things are. And I'll still be working with you just on a less frequent basis because I need to focus on Amplio U. Okay, so take care.
Thanks, Al. Take
Thanks,
care.
Al.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Al.
You're quite welcome.